Hi, it's Milan Vukmirovic, and you're listening to the Wasted Hour podcast.
Perfect. So welcome everyone to the Wasted Hour podcast, the podcast about fashion, inspiration, artists, and creative culture. I'm Martin, and I'm very happy to introduce today's guest, Milan Vukmirovic. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
No, thank you for having me. Pleasure.
Yeah, it's a real honor. Like when you sent me your CV, I saw that you have like over 30 years background in fashion, and I can't wait to dive into this. But what the first question is that I wanted to ask is, what was the last piece that you've bought?
That I bought.
Yeah.
Let me think. Was actually I bought. Well, I made my own Vans, customized on the website of Vans, and I really kind of enjoyed it because I love the old school of Vans. I think it's one of the best style ever. And now there is so many options to customize it online. And yeah, you can download your own picture if you want. You can add, all this check even on the sole. There is so many options. So I kind of like get really excited doing my own personal Vans that no one will have, just me.
Perfect. Yeah, that sounds good. Like I mentioned, like you've been into fashion for the past like 30 years, but do you remember like the first time you recognized that like when fashion came into your life, like the first memory?
Yeah, completely. I mean, there is two things. I had the chance to have a mother who really liked clothes and liked fashion, and she was always very nicely dressed and she liked accessory. So I remember, I think probably one of my first memories that she had this clutch with the Dior monogram. That is exactly the one that they do now on the tote bag that Maria Grazia is using everywhere. It was exactly the same in the 70s. And I remember that. I don't know why. It was really something strong. So I always kind of like surrounded by a mother that had good taste and always like learned me that you have to look good, that clothes were important also, for your image, but also what you want to translate in a way, to look good and to look confident. After that, when I was in school, there was a moment where I was really wondering what I wanted to do. I know I wanted to do something creative. And it's really strange. I remember this very strongly. I went to a newsstand in Paris, and I was really young, and I looked at all the magazines, and I saw the Face and ID, and I bought those magazines, and it was really the click. When I saw that, I was like, I want to work in the industry. That's what I want to do. And I really want to create clothes. And it was really the time, of Nick Knight doing the Yohji Yamamoto campaign and Marc Ascoli as a creative director, and it was Comme des Garçons. And so it was also like an incredible time with Jean-Paul Gaultier. It was really the créateur, let's say, more than today. We call designer, creative director, but at the time it was really créateur, which was really like real designers for fashion. And it was, I don't know, I said, okay, I'm going to find a school. That's what I want to do. And in the same time, when I finally found the school in Paris, took a credit at the bank, asked for money because my parents couldn't pay for it. And I had some free time next to the school. So I said, like, I have to do something from this free time I have. And then I started to send my letter to all the magazines in Paris and try to have an internship. And I say, I'm ready to work for free, bring the coffee, whatever. I just want to learn what it is to work in a magazine. So very early, I was 19 and I was doing school. So I learned pattern making and design. And on the side, in the afternoon, in the morning, I was working in a magazine. And Jardin des Modes at the time was a very famous French magazine. And curiously enough, when I think about it now, because people don't know this magazine now, but at the time it was really very special magazine because very big size, and it was really not talking only about fashion, but also architecture and design and furniture, like a lot of field of creation. and it was an amazing school for me. So that's how everything started, and that's how my first feeling for fashion was. But it's true that it was again an incredible time when you think about the designers at the fashion at the time, because
Yeah.
nothing was really like copy or rechange. It was really new. You know, everything that was coming is something that you didn't really see before. So it was exciting.
Yeah, I think so too. The first time when you discover fashion for the first time, like everything for you is brand new, and like I see myself now that like I've been following fashion like for the past 10 to 15 years, and now I see things coming like back, and like that makes me feel like I'm oh wow, like I'm on my second cycle already.
Yeah, but in fact, it's one of the most. It's funny you pointed something that is actually one of the most challenge and difficult thing if you want to continue to work in fashion, is to never become, not I will say bitter, but to say, oh, it was better before, or I saw this already. In fact, it is the system of fashion to recycle and to change, and it's true that if you're very honest, even the fashion from the 80s, some things are inspired by the 40s, for example. So there is always a references, and very often the fashion today is very inspired by, let's say, 20 years ago or 30 years ago. It's always a little bit this kind of timing. So it's very dangerous to basically not get bored because, for example, and I will not give a name, but I know one or two brands today who are very, I will not say successful, but that people really like online on social media, and who literally copy what Helmut Lang was doing. And but and when you think about it, early 90s, yeah, the generation, the millennial, very the young one, they don't know Helmut Lang what it was, and you can copy it and people think it's great. For me, I don't have the same feeling because a copy doesn't have it on top of that the same strength that Helmut Lang was a whole, you know, image, advertising, philosophy, art. There was a whole more than just the clothes. But he had such an impact. And that's what I love about fashion too, is that now you see how much influence it was. And you see since 10 years how much Phoebe Philo has influenced fashion, for example. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So it's also interesting that really there is some designers who are important in the way that they're going to influence a whole generation of designer after them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's amazing too. And like sometimes I tend to be like, oh, I've seen it already, or like there's nothing new. But I think at the same time, and it also comes with music or like another art as well. When you look like closely, there's like so much new things going on as well. Like it's just like what's in your feed sometimes on Instagram, or what like the main, yeah, what the main people like. Like there's always something in between or left or right next to it.
But the thing for me, you know, since I work at Colette, that I'm someone who analyze a lot, and I love to think about fashion history and fashion evolution and what's next, because my job is also what's next. And I think very often people forget that fashion, apart the fact that it dress you up, so it's clothes that you need to put on, there is different aspect of fashion. It's a social status, and it was. So it means that before you were dressing, people who had a lot of money could afford very expensive clothes, and therefore it was a social status. You were going out, and people were looking at you like, "Oh wow, you know, this person must have money because they have expensive clothes." And that's what happened after with the logo and everything. People want to show that they can afford Gucci and Fendi and Vuitton and things like that. So it's true that fashion is a social status. After that, I think it's also fashion all the way since decades is also following, I will say, not a trend, but an evolution of our way of life also. So it means, for example, more you travel, more you want comfortable clothes. If you look at 50 years ago, 100 years ago, clothes were really not comfortable. It was really something that we were forgetting about how to move with the body. So it's true that even now, since the last 20 years, people are much more body conscious. So they want more and more loose clothes, comfortable clothes. And then the other element is that, strangely enough, fashion is much more democratic because now, you know, everybody see fashion on social media. Before it was just for the journalists and that's it. It was for an elite. Now that fashion is much more democratic, you're talking to a bigger audience. So if it's a bigger audience, this bigger audience has less money because, of course, there is more people with not too much money, less rich people. Rich are more rich, but there is more and more people with less money. So it's also the reality that not only the comfort, but you can't buy a suit every day. You can't buy a new bag every day. It's too expensive. And also, if you think about it, expensive clothes of quality, suits, coat, need dry clean. You can't wash. So dry clean is expensive too. So there is a lot of things that are also connected to actually the way of life we're having. And so now when someone tell me like, oh, fashion is all about t-shirts, sweatshirts, and joggings and things like that, it's true, but it's also because of a reality of the life we have.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest challenge that we're facing in the future is that, and it's crazy because I'm talking against my own church in a way, but I think that we need less and less clothes. We are more and more conscious that mass production of fashion is pollution, that climate change is there. So in a way, yes, there is concept of sustainability and things like that, but somehow I'm curious to see the future because in a way, maybe fashion will be less of a priority like it used to be.
Yeah.
And that's something like it's a whole new challenge
Yeah.
to see how can you still be relevant, seduce a new consumer, and those consumer how they're going to consume. Actually, it's very interesting.
Totally. I think like the whole sustainability thing, like that came into the picture more like 5 years ago. And when I look at it now, like how it has developed in those 5 years, like every time I'm in Paris, like at the showrooms, and that like there is a new fabric, there is a new way of doing things. And I think, and hopefully it will be this way that like, especially now, like a lot of brands will focus on that and like alternative methods to produce their clothes, and so that that they will either last longer, or how they are going to be produced, or how they're going to be dyed, etc., etc.
Yeah, for me though, I have to be honest. I'm always a little bit suspicious when something is becoming a marketing argument. Also, I think that I really believe that it's almost like when people say, "I don't want to use plastic bottle for water, but I'm buying Nikes."
Exactly. Yeah.
Nike is maybe one of the biggest producer of plastic when you think that every 2 weeks there is new styles, and this since the last 20 years. So I think that also for climate change, it's on a much bigger scale even that fashion. I think it's government, politic. It's when you vote, then you make a choice, and I think this is really like big choices of electricity instead of carbon, oil. I mean, all gas, all these things. It's like I think it has to be on a much bigger scale. Of course, everybody has to do his own work in his own field, and fashion has a work to do on that. But I don't like when I see some fashion brand who use this as a just an argument because the principle of fashion is business. You have to make money, people, and so there is too many people maybe on this planet. That's the real problem because that's where the pollution comes from. So anyway, if you have to dress all these people, even with sustainability fabrics or clothes, wow, you need to produce so much quantity that how, where, transportation. There is a lot of things to kind of think about before. So I'm for sustainability, but I think it should not be something that is too marketing because I think it just manipulate people to just continue to buy basically.
Yeah, and
And
that they
maybe
have
the
like a
problem
yeah.
is the problem is to buy too much. Why we need to buy all the time so much?
Yeah, I think it's a very thin line. Like when you said now, like it's like working in a fashion, and that I know too. Like I don't need like a new pullover, or I don't need new shoes, etc. But at the same time, we're working this business, and I'm like really curious how this is gonna work out, if it will work out or not. So I think that will be one of the main challenges for the next years. But
Well,
we're fully like into the now already. What I wanted to like get back, you already mentioned like Colette, and like when you went into
sorry, I
like
speak a lot.
no worries. Like I'm curious about everything that you have to say. But when you mentioned that you went to fashion school, like you dropped out, right? Because I once read that you said that you hated it there, and then you dropped out. Can you say what
Yes,
you hated
because
about it?
especially at S-Mod, I was there in class and I was trying to be different. And basically, they were trying to make us draw the same way, everybody. And I was like, and I was really remember I was like drawing things completely like at the time I was in love with Christian Lacroix. It was like the big brand in the end of 80s, and basically the teacher will take my drawing and say like, okay guys, this is what you should not do. So I was like, fuck. And then I realized that in a lot of fashion school, the teachers are students that became teacher.
Yeah.
It's not student that actually had an experience. They become teacher right away. So you don't have also the reality of the you know, um, and I don't know. I just felt I was different, and I wanted to do my own way. And that's a little bit the story of my life and career. I'm a little bit of a free spirit.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I did the right choices, but I always wanted to feel free to do a lot of things and not someone to tell me what I should do or put me in a box with a label. I hated that all my life.
Yeah. No, I can see like if you're like a sensible person or like then you when you want to fit into a box, like you can't stay in there. And I think like the whole concept of fashion is like doing something in a new way as well, and not following like a blueprint that's already there.
Yeah, but we talked on the phone before. It's also like it's easier for you in your generation now because it's more accepted that Virgil Abloh is a designer, an architect, a DJ, and things like that.
Yeah.
In my case, it was now almost like 15 years ago, and it was really, really not accepted.
Yeah.
You couldn't cross the lines.
Yeah. There were
You
like
know,
there was like a gatekeeper thing where you couldn't get in.
yeah, if you're a journalist, you're a journalist, and that's it. If you're a buyer, you're a buyer. If you're a designer, you're a designer. You're not a photographer. You're not this, you're not that. It was very, very, in a way, fashion seems to be now like such an open, creative field, but really before there was really much more rules, let's say, and it was a few magazines with very important editors that we know, and they were ruling the whole thing.
Yeah.
And in fact, somehow what's happening since few years, it's a complete revolution of that too, because of the democratic feeling of social media, which I think is good because it gives freedom to people.
I think so too, but it's so funny that you mentioned it that like when you think like today like everything is accepted. I remember when I was starting the Wasted Hour and I was writing like we were like an online shop and magazine like to some labels, and they were always asking like, so are you what, like a shop or a magazine? And I was always like, no, I'm both. And then they said like, why? You have to be
Yeah, but because sometimes you can't ask people to have imagination, it's like you need to show them what it looks like. And then when they see it, they understand it. And
Yeah.
I think this is something I realized recently also is that don't wait for people to ask you to do things. Show them what you can do, and then after they will ask you.
Yeah.
And that's also a little bit the limitation of some people in this business. They need to see something first.
They need to see something first, so that they have to have a box for it, so that they can classify it. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Like after 1 year now, like when I introduced the concept now and I can show it, then I'm like, oh yeah, it totally makes sense. But of course, for me, that I was thinking about it 1 year before, it made sense right away. But yeah.
No, in fact, I mean, honestly, if you just think twice, if today Colette was starting and I was there, like I was at the concept, and after at the hall for 3 years, I was buying everything there and doing all the windows, everything. And I will get a job at whatever, Jil Sander like I did, or Gucci or somewhere, it will be completely different. Today, it will seem normal. Well, at the time, it wasn't.
Yeah,
It wasn't.
that's so funny because like when I read your CV as well, like I thought like that you were like the one of the blueprints for it because you haven't finished like fashion school but ended up like as a designer, like at first.
Yeah, because in fact, but
Lanvin as
because
well.
yeah, but because also like I also am someone who I do photography. I never learned photography, but I work with some famous photographers, and I looked how they were working. And I'm someone who really work by experience. So I also, before even Lanvin everything, I designed women clothes for like 2 years with a friend. We did a label. We were selling. I was selling to Bon Marché, to Joseph in London. I was doing the boxes, the invoice. I mean, that's how I learned my work. And then I realized that I was more a creative director than a designer, which means that I work very well with a design team. So, I have so much ideas that, then I can explain to my team and they design for me. So, and I think there is a real difference between being a creative director and being a designer. Very often when you're a designer, you have to think about the cut, the details and things like that. a creative director has to have the full image about, campaign, fashion show, visual, merchandising, shop, marketing, all of that. So it's a little bit different. I noticed that some designers can do, some designers are not good at being creative director.
Yeah. Like when you like we mentioned before that you were working also at like you co-founded Colette, like the
Yeah.
legendary concept store on Rue Saint-Honoré, which closed like I think 4 or 5 years ago. But you were there like in the middle of the 90s, and you were like the buyer, one of the founders, and did also like the visual merchandising as well.
Yeah. I
And
was doing the windows for almost 3 years. I was doing the windows 2 nights a week,
okay,
the whole night.
because
Yeah.
there was always this. That was one of the main things about Colette, is that the window was always changing. Like you could pass there
Yeah.
like just a few
Yeah.
days
Yeah.
later, and there
No,
was
no.
something new.
When we started, she asked me to buy everything, and I was not a buyer. I say I never bought things in my life. And she said, "Well, you have experience with magazine, with design. You have a good eye. I trust you. Just go." I said, "What do you mean, just go? I can't just go to Milano and go to Prada and Fendi or whatever and just like." And on top of that, at the beginning, convince them. So you can imagine me going to Pucci or Fendi and say, "We're going to open a store where we're going to put a vase from Vinini. I'm going to put a chair from Capellini. I'm going to put a Nike, and I want to have like a Pucci underwear." I mean, in '97. I mean, not even before we opened. I was like 25 years old. People looked at me like, "What's this?" And I say, "It's a concept. It's a new concept. We're just going to put in the same place everything that we love, almost like a magazine, but it's going to be a shop." But the way you go in the shop, it's like when you go through pages of a magazine. And I really convinced a lot of people at the time, like first one to bring NARS makeup in Paris, first one to bring Kiehl's beauty product from America in France. All of this I had to convince people, study the product. It was amazing. It was an incredible experience. But really, at the time, people looked at even Nike. Nike said like, "No, we're doing sports shoes. We're not in fashion." I said, "But fashion people wear Nikes." And I said, like, "Let me buy some style." And it's crazy now how I see how things evolve. But really, and it's not just me. Of course, it's Colette, who's an amazing woman and person. Is that Colette really the shop revolution the retail and the merchandising, the visual merchandising. And
100%.
after 20 years, you saw concept stores everywhere and mixing candles, sneakers, blah blah blah. Like it really influenced the whole retail and the way things were presented. For example, when we did all the concept, after I bought everything, Colette said to me, "Please, can you tell me how you want things to be presented? We need to ask the architect to put the right furniture for it." And I was doing this drawing, and I was like, I imagine the vase like that, this like that. I would like to also open a book, and just like maybe the photography will go with the object we present, because I want people to also have an emotional feeling in the store. Like not just like buying, but maybe have even a mood of what's trendy and things like that. So it was very like I put a lot of my soul at the beginning in this store. And it's true that after also when I left, it changed. It went more streetwear, sportswear, which is normal because Sarah is also another generation, and I think she did an amazing job. And it was the natural evolution. But it's true that the beginning was very, very intense. And yes, Colette told me, "I want the store to change every week, completely." So we couldn't do it during the day because people were buying. So basically, for almost 3 years, every week, 2 nights a week, I was working and I was finishing at 9 o'clock in the morning, exhausted. Flowers, everything. But then people were coming and the store looked totally different all the time.
Yeah.
And I think this was one of the key of the success.
Yeah, definitely. But what I was just thinking when you told me that you didn't know any about buying or like how to arrange a store, I think like doing it requires a lot of self-confidence. Do you know where you became like self-confident?
Well, it's very strange because people who don't know me, and because I think of the Ray-Ban and maybe the street style picture, and I don't know, maybe a reputation, I don't know, but very often people think I'm very arrogant, too confident, cold, um, and it's really not my personality at all. I'm actually very shy, um, and maybe it's also because at the time, very often Colette was telling me, after 1 year of Colette, everybody wanted to be in the store. So me being the head of buyer and fashion and everything, we were, you can't imagine the numbers of calls and everybody wanted to be in the store. So I had to be the bad guy and say no to a lot of people because there is also a lot of things I don't like. So I was saying no, 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 no. And in fact, now, when I look back, I probably got a lot of enemy or jealousy at the time of people who really didn't really like me. But Colette was always telling me, don't try to be nice or please everybody. It never works. And about the confidence is like, even today when I go on a shoot and I have an idea in my head, and I have a team of 15 people waiting for me to be strong and creative and confident. I'm never sure of if my idea is going to be good or not. I'm like shaking inside. I'm like so fucking stressed. And I still have to come with a smile. I have to be nice with everybody. I have to show that I know what I'm doing. And sometimes I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm sorry. But sometimes I change the idea during the day because it's really not what I wanted. But I rarely change my idea. I explain you why. I think the confidence comes from if you think about things before. You really have to think a lot about what you want to do, which kind of story, fashion story you want to do, which kind of photography you want to do. And also, I think when you buy, maybe it's a question of I have a good eye. I like to select. I have a very strong taste, so I adapt myself to different brand at the time when I was buying, and I think yes, you have to believe in what you do. I think it's funny. I had a discussion yesterday with someone about love, but I make a lot of parallel between love and work. When you make a choice, stick to it, and that's how you show confidence. Because if you're not sure the person you love or the work you choose or whatever, I'm sorry, it's not going to work because people are not going to feel you confident in what you do.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on this. Oh, funny. But when you after the 3 years at Colette, you switched back into being a creative director, and that was back then you worked for Gucci under Tom Ford.
Well, I mean, again, you're probably too young, but 95 was the kingdom of Prada and Gucci.
Yeah.
And Tom Ford was really I don't know, I can't compare to someone today, but was really the guy. And maybe the first guy who changed a brand, an old brand, into something completely modern and glamorous and made millions at the time. And so when at the time Tom Ford is calling you and say, I want to meet you, and then propose you to be design director of Gucci Group, when at the time in the office there was Christopher Bailey, Italo Zucchelli, Francisco Costa, Claire Whaler, John Ray, and then after we had Stefano Pilat. I mean, wow. I mean, it's and my heart was broken. I cried, Colette too. It was very difficult for me to leave that story, but I really felt like I did everything I had to do there in a way that it will continue to be successful even without me, because I think the success was there. So I really accepted this offer because also I was missing design. I wanted to go back to fashion, to design, fashion show, all of that, designing or even working on accessories. And so, I went to Sergio Rossi for Gucci. I also worked on Saint Laurent accessory for Gucci Group. I was happy to go back to that. And then from that, yes, the Jil Sander came, and after Trussardi, it's never something I wanted to give up because I love fashion. I love clothes. I always wear clothes. I have a very it's true, I'm not a conceptual person. I like clothes and I like to wear them. I'm very, functional in terms of I like fashion like that. Sometimes, yeah, maybe just for dreaming and photograph pieces, but I like reality of fashion.
Yeah. And then after you switched to Jil Sander, after Gucci as well, around the
Yes,
millennium time.
yes,
And you if I'm not mistaken, you also created the first perfume I ever bought. It's Jil Sander Sun, if I'm correct.
yes,
Yeah, that was my first
yes.
perfume when I was like,
Yes, because in fact, to be honest, the real story it was we did it with Coty. Sun existed already for women,
yeah,
and then they asked me to do Sun men, and yeah, I think we did the launch. If I remember, was I don't know if it was Barcelona or Madrid. I think it was Barcelona. We did a huge event. Ah, yeah, this was like old times, but yeah, this one and Pure of Jil
yeah.
Sander. This was my whole concept also.
Yeah. No, the sun had like the orange thing on top, and that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the first campaign with, if I don't mistaken, I don't know if it was Greg McDean or it was the guy on the boat, black and white. It's very beautiful. Yeah.
yeah,
No, Gilles Sander was an incredible experience. You know, it's like I was killed by fashion people because I was a buyer from Colette going to Gilles Sander, and really I had all the women of the woman journalists at the time who were friends with Jill who wanted just one thing: it's her to come back. So they did everything to kill me, really everything. Um, I liked what I did there. I mean, I could have done better. I was also very young, and I think you need to give time and people to get ready. The thing is also, if really you 100% honest, when Riccardo Tisci came to Givenchy, he did something completely different that was not Givenchy, and it was accepted.
yeah,
I think for me, people were not ready to accept Gilles Sander to change. And in fact, I love what the two designers are doing there now, because I think they really respect what Gilles was. But I think for me, in reality, a brand should evolve because at a certain point, it's not Gilles anymore. So it's someone else. So someone else means something different.
yeah,
And you see it now more and more in a lot of other brands. But strangely enough, I was killed on the women's side, but the men's collection I did at Gilles were selling really, really, really well. So they never succeed, and this I know for a fact, to sell as much as what I was doing at the time. And this for me, because I heard that recently someone was telling me, say, you know, we were looking at the numbers the past 20 years, we never reach the amount of menswear you were selling for Jil Sander. And this I was really happy because, of course, I'm always closer to menswear anyway.
yeah. No, that's so funny because I think probably one or two pieces from you back then are hanging in our closet back there because my husband is one of
Ah,
the biggest Jil Sander fans of all time, and I think like when
which one? Which
I
one? I
have to
would be
show you.
curious to know even which
I
one.
look later, and then I'll photograph, and perhaps like it's from your era as well. But those are like cardigans and like pullovers that like are, and shoes as well that are like 20 years old, something like that.
But what's very strange, I still have two or three pieces. Oh, it didn't change. Like I have a cashmere sweater, it's still perfect. I have a friend who has a corduroy military jacket that I did for Gio. Same. I think the quality at the time and everything, the price of the fabrics and everything made it like really a luxury.
Yeah. What you mentioned before is that like I think today like they try to turn around every brand. Like every like 2 years like a new designer comes in and everyone expects them to do their magic trick and then like to somehow like completely reinvent something new, and I think that's just not possible at the moment to reinvent like a label in like
Well,
2 seasons.
sometimes it works. Sometimes it works. Sometimes not. I think on the longer term, it's also very dangerous because then your clientele doesn't understand anymore.
Yeah,
No, it's true
yeah, totally.
because I think Ricardo was talking to a certain kind of client. What Claire was doing is talking to another kind of client. I'm sorry, it's not the same consumer. So in a way, how to and now what it's going to happen with Matthew Williams is going to be maybe another consumer again. So it's not an easy thing. It's like cooking. You need the right ingredients, the right recipe. But obviously, what Ken Jones do for Dior works and selling very well. You like it or not, but it works. Somehow, Raf Simons was doing Dior, and Maria Grazia is selling much, much more. So maybe she found the consumer for Dior. So it's also a whole of mix. Sometimes people forget they judge a designer or fashion with their own taste or their own vision, but they forget that it's also a business, it's also consumer,
Yeah.
and so what is best for a brand to have social media and magazines, or to sell a lot also? It's a weird, it's a business and also a creative field, so it's very
I
complicated.
think so too. But what I also think too is that like there is no loyalty to a brand like anymore, like because like there are so many designers going around, and like I think like 20 years ago you had like the Jil Sander client, and like I think the last era where we had it was like the Celine client as well, where you were like, okay, this is the woman that buys it for the past 10 years, and I think like now that every label like is evolving all the time, or like there's a small revolution happening, like it's like there.
Yeah, but don't forget something though. When even what you mentioned, let's mention Celine and Jil Sander. It's still at the time where women magazine were very powerful. So really, it was filtered by certain important journalists, and it was representing fashion pages as the thing to wear, the thing to buy, because everybody loved Celine or Jil Sander, for example. But at the time, it was again for certain elite of consumer, and it was also a little bit of a dictatorship, because now this democracy of social media is not the fact that we are free to do what we want. Is that also what has been liberated is the fact that we are all different: fat people, skinny people, gay, feminine, trans, uh, of course black. I mean, there is now like the diversity open the market also much, much more. Because in fact, for example, if you're a woman, you don't have to be just skinny, white, not eat, and wear a perfect dress. No, now there is a lot of different kind of beauty, different kind of styles. And I think all of this is opening because somehow I think not only the magazine didn't know how to renew themselves, but they completely missed this thing of society that was mixing in terms of race and culture and influence, and liberate a little bit from the dictatorship. And in a way, if you're really honest, fashion, even maybe 100 years ago, was even more dictated. You had to wear corsets. Fashion was really like imposing you things.
Yeah.
And somehow, since few years, people say like, no, enough. We are free. We can also consume what we want, and it has to be something that looks like us.
Totally.
So it's really difficult for a designer today to make someone dream, but then also answer to their needs. And something I wanted to say before too, what I think is also people don't think about, but a designer is someone who gets influenced by a lot of things. You're like a sponge, yeah. You see exhibitions, movie, books, whatever, and you create. I see today a lot of new generation of designer who get inspired by Pinterest and Google research. But then everybody look at the same inspiration. So people are doing all the same things. And on top of that, you can't anymore get inspired by the Indians or Arab culture or Russian history, because then people say it's cultural appropriation. So before, fashion was getting inspired by a lot of other cultures. Now you have to be very, very careful because people don't like that and criticize that. So it also gives less opportunity of people to get inspired by things. So suddenly what we see in fashion shows, tie and dye, of course, that's no problem. Camouflage, check. But we see this more and more.
Yeah.
It's like, and again, when you work with young designers, they all come almost with the same inspiration they find on internet. And it's a pity because I think for me, inspiration comes also from old movies and photography, books, really. Books is so fucking, why Karl Lagerfeld has so many books. It's not a secret because it's inspiring.
Yeah.
And travel and all of that. So yeah, today that's a little bit the part that I like less. I think there is maybe a little bit less language to express yourself creatively.
Yeah, but it's so funny that she mentioned like the whole inspiration thing. I also read like a quotation of yours that says that you have to consume like a lot if it's like music, like TV, photography, and just like soak it all up, and then you can like digest it and let it all out. And I 100% agree with that, because like since I can remember, I was like listening to music. We've been watching like so many films, and not be like, oh, I'm just watch what's on TV, or I just watch what's popular on Netflix. But I'd be like when I was 15 and I saw a Martin Scorsese movie, I was like, who's like who is this? And then I googled like all his films, and I was like buying them on eBay, and I watched like from his first movie until the last, and I'd be like, okay, wow, now I get the aesthetic.
Yeah, like for example, if you want to understand Prada, you have to look Italian movies from the 50s and 60s and Hollywood film from the 40s.
Yeah,
And then you will look at this black and white movie, and sometimes you will see jacket with fur on the sleeves and crystal on the jacket. And then you understand also Prada influence somehow. And I say many times, Prada, especially with what's going on now there, it's an important moment because Prada is an Italian brand, and now there is this collaboration with Ralph, which is Belgium. So it's interesting because it's a completely different culture. But anyway, to understand the identity of a brand, you have to understand also the culture and the inspiration and everything. Yeah, it's definitely a time that are changing a little bit rules in everything right now.
like after your after Jil Sander, you went like a short time later, you switched sides again, and like on the magazine side, and you were at L'Officiel Homme.
Yeah, after Gisando, one thing that happened to me where I was, I think, very lucky, I actually signed a new contract for Gisando. And this, I actually never said it publicly, but I was supposed to continue for 2 years. So you have a scoop now. And she came back, but she only stayed 1 year after she left again. So I was actually very lucky because suddenly in my life I could take a year off and think a little bit because I had really 7 years of craziness. Colette, Gucci, Sergio Rossi, Saint Laurent, Jil Sander. It was just crazy, insane. And so I took a year off to really think about what I really wanted to do. And I think sometimes it's very important. I always give this advice to everybody. Sometimes take a step back and think a little bit, and enjoy life, regenerate, and think about what you want to do. And then Marie-Josée Jaloux from L'Officiel contacted me, and she wanted me to help her to do L'Officiel Woman. And again in my life, I say, I'm not a journalist. I don't know how to do a magazine. And so, come on, you did. It's true, I did collaboration when, at the time of Colette, I did some stuff with Dutch and ID and things like that. But I say, no, I'm not ready. But I know you have this title called L'Officiel Homme. I would like to do it. And if I can do it twice a year, I take the challenge. And she accepted it. And so we did L'Officiel Homme Paris. And that was it, twice a year. And then it became 4 times a year. And then the whole thing started. L'Officiel Homme China, L'Officiel Homme Arabia, L'Officiel Homme Russia, blah, 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 15 edition after. So yeah, I did that for 7 years. And it was, when I look back now, if I didn't accept to do it, I would have never started photography. So
exactly.
It's funny how, I always say to young designers, young people, and today, if you're in fashion, please open your mind. It's like, if you want to do something, do it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. It's an experience. You will have no regret. But if it works, wow, great. So you will have done something that you believed in. So it's really like important not to be scared to make some jump sometime. And that's really maybe what brings to what we were saying before about confidence. It's true that jumping is super scary, but gives you a lot of confidence because you think, I did it. I try. I'm proud of me. Whatever, if it works or not.
Yeah. But when you did like your first photographs or the first editorials, you used a fake name.
How you know that? Yeah. Because it brings back to what I said to you before. Don't forget again that it was 2005, and it seems not long ago. But even then, if you had a magazine, you were not doing pictures inside. It could have been considered like an abuse of power, or you were using your position to do photography. But and I was scared again. So when I started to do it, I invented another name because I wanted people to judge my photography, not me. And it's also actually, it was an amazing experience because now I really believe that sometimes some fashion brand, if you change the name, people will critique and look at it completely differently.
Yeah, because they don't recognize the box anymore. And
Oh
I
yeah,
can totally agree with you
complete.
on that as well. Because like when I was doing my first pictures as well for the wasted hour, I just used like MH, my initials, and not like my name. I was like, no, like people were like I didn't want my put my name out there. But then like for me it was like when I was looking, I think like 1 year after I started shooting photos, that I was looking at the first photographs that I was proud of, and then I was like, okay, I can use my real name now. Like that's something I feel confident
Yeah,
about.
no, because in fact it takes a lot of maturity to also understand, when people say like, oh, I'm hurt by critiques or jealousy or people who talk bad of me, because sometimes they also judge in their own way, not knowing the full story or the full everything. I think that it's funny how in a critique there is a lot of things that could be just personal, and in fact when you do something anonymous, in fact the critique is much more honest in a way. And but it's true that I think some brand, if you put I don't know, Celine on it or Comme des Garçons on it, people are gonna love it anyway. But then if it's another brand, people are gonna hate it. It's also a whole perception thing, and I guess this is what marketing is for. Also, how you sell yourself, how you sell your image, your name, and everything. Um, but after 1 year, I stopped because I started to have calls and people wanted to meet Andreas. This was my fake name, and they proposed me a big campaign for advertising. I couldn't even believe, and I had to tell them that it was me. I mean, it's like, at a certain point I had to say truth, and then I put my name, and it went much more smooth, and people accepted the photography. Strangely enough, in all of this, it took me almost 10 years for me to accept being a photographer.
Yeah, when someone asks you what are you doing, that you can also answer like I.
Yeah, because there is two things. When people ask you what you do, who really don't know you, and you say everything you do, they almost look at you like they don't believe you, like you're a little bit of a, you know, who's this guy? It's like we must be like inventing things. And then, yeah, I think it will be so much more easy to say to people, I'm a photographer, and that's it.
Yeah.
So,
But
yeah.
you're doing photos until now, and in 2011 you started doing Fashion for Man, which is like an annual magazine, and that's when we talked on the phone as well. Like I think it was in 2011 when I was on Tommy Ton's street style blog, jakandjil.com, and I saw like several pictures of you, and then I was like googling who you are and like what clothes you were wearing, and then of course like I discovered Fashion for Man as well. And until this day, I always look forward to it when it comes out, and also when you started doing like the Fashion for Man like summer editions, or like the one with Jet, etc. And but in 2011, like social media and like the internet was also already on the rise. I mean, like there were blogs around the time, and I think you said back then that you wanted to go against the digital trend by creating like Fashion for Man.
Yeah, because that, I love fashion. It's my life. What's difficult in this world is that every time something is a little bit new or cool or whatever, it's right away taken over by people from marketing, and then it's everywhere, and then it becomes less interesting. So you really have to reinvent yourself all the time. And I think the what happened with street style also, like at the beginning, uh, the idea was to photograph professionals who worked in this business and to see how they were wearing stuff, how they were mixing clothes, because as professional, they were supposedly people who have more, not taste, but like, let's say ability to wear and mix things and influence other people. But suddenly it becomes so big, then you see a whole new bunch of people coming just for dressing, for going to fashion show and be photographed. So it was not anymore about really how you put things and if you have taste. It was basically just to get attention. So, it's much less honest, because then you put like a costume and you're a clown and you photograph because you have whatever, a wig or, this or this or this. So it's interesting, it's fun, but I think the first idea was lost a little bit there. But for after 7 years of L'Officiel Homme, and I was doing Trussardi, in the meantime, I also opened another concept store in Miami
Yeah.
called the Webster. also became very famous, I was exhausted. I was really very, very, very tired, and I decided to change a little bit my life. I moved to Miami to have a little bit quality of life. And I was wondering, I said, like, L'Officiel was such a big success and generate quite a lot of money. And I had a lot of advertisers that were ready to follow me on another adventure. And I remember someone telling me, it's very difficult to make a magazine. You're going to have a lot of problems. If I were you, I will not do it. And if you tell me that, I'm going to do it, of course.
Challenge accepted.
And so I say, you know what? Everybody look on the phone. I had this vision of feeling that anyway, it will end up like that. And I think to be a weekly magazine or a news magazine or things like that, what's the point? Because then you get it on the phone right away. You don't need the magazine to come out to read information on news. People see catwalk shows already right away. So there is this immediate information. So what's the purpose of a magazine if you continue it? Is actually photography, I think, and beautiful images that can influence people. But also, I don't know why, I believe a lot in magazine as a good archive for fashion students.
Yeah, it's 100% like that. Yeah.
It's really fun because I thought I don't know. In fact, nobody ever saw, but I don't know how much images we see every day on the mobile phone. Let's say something stupid, but 10,000 images. We're going to save maybe some, but we're going to forget those images.
Totally.
And also because it's digital, it doesn't really stay because we're not going to print every single picture we like. And it's true that when you work, when you make some research and you design, yes, you can make research on your Google, but it's so nice to open an old magazine and to see the advertising, the celebrities, the clothes, everything. And I remember my passion was to really buy some magazine from the 70s and 80s and things like that. I loved that. So I say, why not doing a magazine that is actually a book where really nobody tell me we have only 8 pages to do a story. Now, if I want to do a story with 40 page, I do it with 40 page. If I want to do everything double page, I can because it's mine. And I say, at the end, even with L'Officiel, but I see a lot of magazines which slowly started to make less money. So they started to use cheaper paper. They started to print in a much more cheaper way. And also I was like, what is that? Like, I love photography. If photography is badly print, like it makes no sense. And it hurts me as a photographer. So I wanted a beautiful paper, beautiful print. And I say, I want this book, like a coffee table book. I want something that stay. And right away, I say, you know what? In 10 years, it will be an incredible archive for a young student that's going to open and say, this was what fashion was in 2011.
Yeah.
And yes, in 2011, you will see that it was the big time of Riccardo Tisci, the Rottweiler, and blah, blah, blah. And I like that. I think that it's funny to do something for now. And I think fashion is always about now, but you have to think also a little bit of the influence you can have on people and what you leave behind.
Yeah.
So this was the concept. And I'm actually impressed. I'm working now on the 10 years anniversary. I'm impressed that I last that long because I really thought that, with digital, I will lose my advertisers all one by one. And actually this week, another one wanted to be in it by surprise. It's not confirmed yet, but a new big one. So it's a recognition that I'm happy. It doesn't really make money, but I don't care. I also think that we all have, jobs where we have a salary, we make money. But I think I love this fashion. And even if it's a business, there is no point doing this if you don't put your soul, your emotions, your passion, your creativity. I mean, that's the reason why you wake up in the morning, not the money you have to make.
Oh.
It's really like what makes you happy all those hours you work, the excitement of create.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. No, totally. And I think like it was like the first time I was looking at fashion for men, and I had the feeling that I was looking at your like diary of like the last year of like what inspired you, what clothes you thought were good, what people inspired you with the interviews. So always was like for the next year I was already waiting. And like I told you in the phone call before, it's like the first page that I always look to is like the playlist on the last page, and I'd be like, okay, what was the mood for like because like then I'd be like, okay, that's the setting.
But on top of that, the playlist is actually not the playlist I'm using to do the magazine. It's in fact when I finish
Yeah.
the magazine, when I put it together, I listen to music, and that's the music that inspires me. But you see, listen to you first. Thank you. It's a compliment, and I really appreciate it because it's always the best. The best compliment is someone who read and know what they talk about. Because now a lot of people talk about what I do because of what they see on the phone, but they don't even never saw the magazine. So it's kind of weird. But for example, yes, it's a diary. But now, for example, when I really like someone young or unfortunately, and I don't know why, there is also a little bit this trend now of snobism, where some designers feel that they don't want to talk, they don't want to do any interview. I guess it's the Margiela syndrome.
Yeah.
I think I respect what Margiela did, but if everybody start to do that, it's a little bit. I don't like it, to be honest. And I think maybe sometimes some designers at the moment who actually have success started to have a very big ego very quick, and uh, and 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 sometimes I just want to tell them, like, be careful, because it doesn't last forever for no one. And I think that also personality and being nice is very important in this
Yeah.
business. So sometimes it's more difficult. But as much as it was difficult for me, for example, I photographed a lot of celebrities before for L'Officiel, a lot, from Kanye West to Pharrell Williams and Tilda Swinton and name it. But it was so difficult for me to deal with the agent,
Yeah.
the business side of the celebrities in LA. That really, there is also a point where I say, you know what, I want to do my diary and really with people that I met, that I love and that I like, and I don't want to interview someone just because this person has to promote a movie or something, and it's not natural, it's not true. I don't want to do a designer who has a big ego and really refuse interviews, and then I have to insist, blah, blah. Why? Honestly, I think things should be much more easy.
Yeah.
And so really, I was lucky and kind of impressed on the last issue. During Art Basel, I met Amoako, the painter, the artist, and I loved his work. And I didn't even know he was going to do something with Dior. And we did this fashion shoot and big interview, and I fell in love with his work. And I felt like, oh, great, after when I saw what he's doing for Dior, and he's everywhere now. So it's the instinct, I will say.
Yeah. But you also like, I love this approach too. And of course, like I deal with some agents as well, like all the time, like doing interviews and stuff. And I was really like happy when the first contact that we had, like you really live it as well. Because like when I had like, when your name appeared on my phone screen, I was like, okay. And then I got on the phone and you were like so nice and like talking to each other, and you really give it back the same thing that you want to have like a good conversation as well. And that's what's really, I think, is like really inspirational, like I hope not just for the two of us, but also for all the people that like listen to it.
Listen, one of the things that really I hope, if people listen to this, they will listen to me. But I don't know the secret of life, I don't know the secret of this business, something like that. But one thing I know, since 25 years I work in this business, all the people that I know who had a huge ego and changed from the beginning where they were nice, and after with success being kind of arrogant, forget you, not nice, who started to not listen anymore and surrounded themselves by people who say, yes, yes, you're great, you're amazing all the time, are always people who started to fail at a certain point.
Yeah.
And I think it's sad. What do you want in your life? Just to be like a designer that everybody love and have dinner with stars and celebrities and for a couple of years, and after those stars and celebrities and all those people are gonna go and love someone else anyway, because they need that.
Yeah.
So don't forget, the people who helped you at the beginning. Don't forget the people who are more simple and really support you and love you. And that will actually, it's like love, like family. People will always be there.
Yeah.
Don't forget them. And unfortunately, I still see it repeats. History is repeating all the time. It happened not, thanks God, not to a lot of designers, but it happened to
Yeah.
some, and it's very sad because suddenly, yeah, I think it's that there is no one around them who tell them the truth and tell them that maybe sometimes you're not super good, or be careful, or maybe this, it's a copy of this. Um, it happened to me in my career to meet people where we're not listening anymore,
Yeah.
and I found that quite sad. And for me, at least, it's a motivation where I know I need to reinvent myself all the time and be nice. And then, as you said, always think that you also work for next generation, people who are going to be influenced by what you do. It's never forget this point also when you work. I think it's what keeps you um, honest in what you do. And obviously, I think then to finish, but to put your soul in what you do.
Yeah.
If you sell your soul to marketing and do things just for money, people will lost interest.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It's so great hearing you saying that after like 25 years. And I can totally agree on that
No,
too.
because you see it, again, you have to keep your eyes open and get as much information as everything. Who knows what's going to happen with Kanye West and Gap? But in a way, thanks God, because for almost 10 years, Gap lost itself completely.
Yeah.
And there was no one there to say, hey, do you see what Zara H&M is doing? Like clothes, or maybe there is some Uniqlo, maybe Gap should do something. So why it didn't happen? There is a reason for that.
Exactly.
Why H&M or Zara is much less interesting now and closing a lot of stores. It's not just COVID. It's also because step by step, they started to do cheaper and cheaper and cheaper.
Yeah.
And, even with campaigns were much nicer at the beginning. I mean, there was much more soul at the beginning, even if it's like a mass product and a commercial product. So I think it's in every level. Whatever you work for Gap or you work for Givenchy, you need to put your soul in things.
Yeah. One thing that I also wanted to talk to you about is like you mentioned it a little bit before, is like the lifestyle, because you've done so much and like so much sometimes at the same time that I can just imagine that it was like very exhausting. And then when did you start caring about yourself, or when did you start like listening to your body? Or
When I came to Miami, because I guess Miami is a little bit like Rio or Barcelona or things like that. I think by the moment you live on the sun and close to the sea, you obviously go to the beach and you have a feeling with your body much stronger. Obviously, people are much more sexy in those places. And I was extremely skinny. I was eating very badly, very badly. I was living on sugar like crazy. I think I was probably drink 8 Coca-Cola a day, not zero, not diet, like pure Coca-Cola, coffee, candies all the time. And so I was on sugar, and I was, really like on the stress all the time and everything. And I'm a workaholic anyway. I love to work, so that's not an issue. But I think I needed this kind of energy. But I was ruining my body, and I felt like I really need to change the way I eat. I never did sport in my life.
and you also stopped
So,
smoking after you photographed Pete Doherty, right?
well, I stopped 4 years ago, 4 years, and then I start again. And for the moment, like for example, now I smoke too much. But I guess this is the COVID lockdown effect. But no, I basically took a coach and I said, please help me, tell me what I should do. And it really like very seriously about how much protein I need every day and what I should need eat in the morning, stop sugar completely, that no alcohol. I mean, there is a lot of things I completely kind of retake and take in charge, and I felt much better. And also, to be honest, it's also not only that I was very tired. It was also, I think, aging. You want to age well, and it's like it's okay to be super skinny and eat sugar when you're young, but when you age, it's not that good. So you have to be a little bit more careful.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I have a better quality of life, but the amount of work is very often the same, and it's very exhausting. It's sometimes people come at me and they say like, "Oh my God, I love what you. I want to be like you." I say, wow, like you say in French, bon courage. You have to work your ass. It's really not easy at all.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work. And
Because you also like, still I forgot to mention, like for the listeners, you're like also like the creative director for Port Sank.
Portsville, yeah. Portsville.
I was like somehow pronouncing French in my head because I was reading something in French.
No, I designed for them since 6 years. I do menswear, and 2 years I was doing Port 961.
Yeah.
2 years and a half ago, they asked me to launch a new brand that we started from zero. And for example, why I say I work a lot, because this year with COVID, now I have to learn to do collection by distance with Zoom, fabric sent by FedEx to my apartment, because usually I travel every month, and now no. So it's much more complicated. Doing shooting is more complicated. Having models is much more complicated. Having clothes, it's much more complicated. It's a fucking year. Everything is so complicated. So it's work, but it gives you even more work.
Yeah.
So that's why I started to smoke a little bit more, unfortunately.
But
no, it's really like I think sometimes some millennials forget that to achieve something or to be somewhere, you need to work a lot. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It doesn't come easily.
And even if you like somehow made it, like you still have to work a lot. And it's not just like the good sides that you see perhaps on social media or like on a job title. There is so much more to it.
Yeah, and the thing for me is that I'm also a little bit of as I say, a free spirit, and I'm actually that's one of the, let's say, if I have to say something negative, but it's true that I'm a little bit of an independent. So today, I think what's important for big brands, for example, is the network you have. Like more you have a community on Instagram, on social media, more people are interested in you. And it's true that I never believed in one community. Like I like different kind of community. I like different tribe. I like freedom. I like independence again.
Yeah.
So that makes the part of me that is maybe not so easy sometimes, because I should communicate more. I should promote my work more, all of that. But I prefer to spend my energy on what I'm doing. So it's a little bit more, I would say, a longer run. It's when we call last week, and I was telling you, sometimes I'm fascinated, even when someone said that he saw the magazine. I mean, the magazine is distributed worldwide, and I know how much I sell, and I see that people are reading it. But it's almost like I can't, I don't speak. I don't know.
Yeah.
So when someone say, I see your playlist, or I saw this story, every time is a compliment for me, because it's almost something I don't
You don't expect it.
picture.
Yeah. And like you see, like it's the long run, like me after 9 years or like nearly 10 years telling you that your playlist and that your magazine and that your work is great.
Yes, but look, I don't know, but I'm glad if I inspire you or if I give you some idea. I'm sure you get inspired by other things too. But the long run is nice because you will last longer anyway, and you will always reinvent yourself. That's what is important now, and now more than ever.
Yeah.
You need to be relevant in what you do, re-question what you do all the time. It's like that's again what I'm saying before, is that sometimes some designers are losing track of what's changing or what's happening. And now it's happening and change quick, because people are so much on the phone looking so quick on clicks and things like that we get bored very easily. So if you do the same thing all over and over again, sometimes people get bored and want something else. So you need to reinvent yourself, even though you have to keep a certain style so people at least don't get lost in what you do. So, I think what you do, for example, is a definitely reinvention of what retail or magazine could be. You're a new generation. You put your own taste in the things. You do the pictures yourself. I mean, you put your soul in it, so there is no reason it won't work. But it's true that your challenge, for example, on what you do, is that to be able to, I don't know when, but sometimes say, you know what, I need to change. I need to reinvent. Now, for example, I decided to completely reinvent my website. I have a little new project coming. I can't talk about it now. And for Fashion for Men, I'm seriously thinking next year to a little bit make an evolution of the whole graphic, the whole thing. Just I think to even challenge yourself, because that's what fashion is about, reinvention.
Reinvention, and what I also think, like for my working ethos, is also like to be open and to give like love to the people that I'm working with, because like it always comes back as well. Like it's not becoming less. I think it's also becoming just more and more and more. And I think that's what.
Yeah. No. It's about. I told you, like when I did this interview, I think there is a lot of parallel in a love relationship and in work. It's very strange when you think about it. There is a lot of common things sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. So Milan, thank you so much for taking the time. Like it was like for me like one of the most interesting hours, and like this like doing the interviews is like the most fun part of my job. So thank you very, very much.
No, I actually when I do interview also for Fashion for Men, I really like. I think interview requires empathy, requires to listen, and also I think a good interview is when you give something. You can't just repeat always the same things over and over. But also again, it always come back to this. Maybe this podcast we're doing is gonna influence one person. But even if it's just one, wow, maybe we're going to inspire someone to do something and to believe and to be confident or things like that. I love this idea. So it means that you and me did something that counts, and that's cool. That's the best thing. If we can transmit our love, our passion to someone, wow, it's an achievement. Already that, it's an achievement.
100% agree on this. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much
for the time.
And actually, yeah, I am going to call you for something else. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.